Okay, everybody, welcome back to our 1991 series, the greatest films of 1991. One by one, we tackle the films of that year, and then we rank them and try to figure out what are the greatest films of 1991. Eventually, this series is going to end with a top 10 list of sorts. But until then, I'm using the tier ranking system. Highlander is one of my favorite movies of all time. I've seen it so many times. It's one of those movies I keep revisiting over and over again. I have kept revisiting over the years. The sequel is a special oddity, let's say, to say the least. It's considered one of the worst movies of all time. It's infamously one of the films that have been given a 0% on Rotten Tomatoes. It's stayed that way for many years. It's considered by people in the category of so bad it's good. Other people, so bad it's bad. It's just bad. It's a travesty. One of those productions that kind of was wrong from the start and just went more and more wrong as things went along. It's a film that's had many versions. The original theatrical cut bombed horribly in its theatrical release. It lost a lot of money. It had a troubled production. The actual filming of it was a nightmare, apparently. The creators and the actors behind it have disowned the film. For the most part, in many ways, including Russell Mulcahy, who stormed out of the premiere of the film, apparently 15 minutes into the movie, after just witnessing the disaster that his movie had become. Now, a lot of the elements of the film that people disliked, like them answering all of the questions from the first film, like trying to explain the immortals. Where do they come from? Why are they immortal? What's going on? Things like that. Things that the first movie doesn't really address. It gives you the basics of that they're to battle each other until there's only one left. There can be only one, and then they'll get a prize. But it doesn't say why they're doing this. It doesn't say why this phenomenon is happening, because it seems like they're kind of randomly being born in the first movie. I actually think that's a lot more interesting. Like, it's like you have a kid and you don't know, is this going to be an immortal? Is this going to be a Highlander? Am I giving birth to a Highlander or whatever? And then you check the babies. Oh, it's a Highlander. But you don't know it's a Highlander. Using Highlander in the place of immortal, obviously. You don't know it's a Highlander until the kid would die, or grow into an adult and then die. They all die at different ages apparently, and then they come back to life. And that's how you find out you have a Highlander. So I like that. It's very mysterious, very weird. It's very just like it was the first script of Gregory Wyden, the original writer. I think he wrote it in college, if I'm remembering that correctly. And it kind of shows as like a concept. I think it's a strong script, but it definitely feels like a young man's script, like idea. It's full of imagination. It's not really concerned with answers. It's not concerned with too much with plot. But the main strengths of the first film are the cast. Christopher Lambert is just oozing charisma, and his awesome accent, and just he's a born star. Sean Connery being added to the cast. Clancy Brown, one of the all-time greatest villains in any film. And then you hire Russell Mulcahy, a visionary artist, one of the greatest visionary directors visual directors of all time. It's funny that they compare the disaster of Highlander 2, the set, the production, to Ridley Scott's Blade Runner, because they are both visual artists. And Highlander is a gorgeous movie to look at. You can even make the argument that this, even with all its flaws, it is really great to look at. It's not an ugly film. It depends. Like it's like, what cut are you talking about? Right? It's like, is this the cut where the sky is pink, or is this the cut where the sky is blue? Is this like, So the movie has different incarnations, but when you see like that opening at the opera house, and then even shots like it's just like he knows how to shoot a film and make it look big and awesome. That's not the problem with Highlander 2. That's not the problem with any Mulcahy film. All of his movies look good. An Australian director. Check out his movies if you have the chance. A couple off the top of my head that are really good. Razorback, his first feature classic horror exploitation film about a killer boar in the outback. Highlander, obviously. And I would even check out, I would say watch this movie. I'm not going to tell anybody to not watch Highlander 2. I'm not going to tell anybody to not watch this movie. And then check out his repairing with Lambert, Resurrection. It's a serial killer film. It even has, oh man, I can't remember his name, but he's in that awesome scene in 7 where he's freaking out. He was the guy in the sex club, who was forced to put the thing on, and he's like freaking out in the chair when they're interrogating him. That guy, that actor, he has great freak out scenes in 7, Very Bad Things, Alien Resurrection, and he's Christopher Lambert's Lambert, whichever you prefer, his partner in Resurrection, which is very similar. When you watch it, it's very similar to a 7 type film. But check it out; it looks great, and it's good, I think. And Vinegar Syndrome put an edition of it on a Blu-ray. That's got to be still floating out there, and obviously that would be the way to see the film. Because you risk, if you find it on Tubi or something like that, you risk it being like a VHS rip or something of lower quality. And when you watch a Mulcahy film, you should watch it in the best quality possible because he's such a visual artist. So it's worth your time to track down the best resolution. So the story goes that they went to Argentina to shoot the film to try to save money. There was an issue there happening politically and also just economically. Their economy was in upheaval and there was a war going on, and they didn't realize this. So they went there to save money, and they wound up not being able to save money. So they might as well have shot it in the States when all was said and done. So they were hemorrhaging funds, and the investors became nervous, the ones who gave the money to make the movie, and then they came in and they interfered. And they changed things around, and they added things, and they insisted on things like Sean Connery being in the movie way more than he originally was going to be. It was going to be nothing more than a cameo. It's a little unclear as to how much they interfered, but they did. Mulcahy definitely sees it that way. And that's one of the reasons, many reasons, why he disowns the film. The part that everybody hates the most, the aliens part, and the whole back in time stuff, depending on what version you watch, that was always there. And that was a problem from the start. So basically it's like, if we're going to make a sequel, we're feeling the pressure from the fans. The fans are asking all these questions like, oh, who are these guys? Why are they immortal? Can you explain this to us? And it's like, and they gave them what they wanted, and they didn't like what they got. That's the bottom line. It's like, you ask for answers, you beg for answers. More often than not, you're not going to like the answer, because it's always going to be better in your head what the answer is. This is something that a filmmaker like David Lynch understands. He gets it. That's why he's never interested in giving you an answer, because he gets this. So they came up with the most logical answer, I guess, that they could come up with at the time. It's like, okay, so it's a world full of magic, immortals, quickening, electric, thunderbolts and decapitated heads and people levitating. And okay, so how do you explain that? Well, it's either magic, right? Could be magic, or aliens, right? Just say it's aliens. So they went with aliens. In Highlander 3, they basically went closer to the magic. And honestly, the first one kind of went closer to the magic, because Queen made that song for the movie, or album, that they had all the songs that they made for the movie. A Kind of Magic, because it's a line in the first film that Lambert says, in a deleted scene to the secretary that wound up working for him. He rescued her as a child during the Holocaust times, and saved her and killed a Nazi, and and then says, "It's a kind of magic," and says the line. So it just kind of stuck. So the first movie is like basically saying in your face, "This is magic," which is another lazy answer, like Aliens. But it was the answer that belonged to the series, to the film, and that's why I guess the fans felt it was such a betrayal, because there was no hint at aliens in the first movie. There was lots of hint at magic, because and the imagery, and it just kind of made you think of like sword and sorcery and fantasy epics and sword play, and the Kurgan had major like dark wizard vibes, and like I said, part 3 would go back to that, and straight up in certain cuts of that film, certain versions, in certain countries, it was called Highlander 3: The Sorcerer, for that very reason, because they went full on. They doubled down on the magic in that movie, and that's probably what they should have done here. Going back to one of the reasons why this was a nightmare to shoot is all of the injuries that happened. They were fighting with 22-pound broadswords. Christopher Lambert and Michael Ironside, who's the new baddie, the new villain in this movie, who's a great choice. He's one of the greatest character actors they could have picked when they couldn't get like if they didn't want to get Clancy Brown. He's like an amazing choice. But they were fighting, and they trained a bit, but Michael Ironside said this is impossible to thrust and fight in the way that you're showing us this choreography. And it's like it's very difficult with these heavy swords, so they wind up getting injured. And Christopher Lambert is already blind. He's like a good percentage blind, through a condition that he has in his eyes, and he's like wielding this heavy sword around. He winds up like chipping Michael Ironside's tooth, and Michael Ironside doesn't have the excuse of being blind, but he just has the excuse of he's not a swordsman, and this is a heavy ass sword. So he chops off a part of one of Christopher Lambert's fingers. Fortunately, they fixed it. They both healed from their injuries. But it was the tension. It was the fact that they took creative control away from Mulcahy, and Lambert had a relationship with Mulcahy, creative relationship, and didn't appreciate that. And he wanted to walk off the project, Lambert did, but he couldn't because of the contract. So this movie has an interesting cast, because you got Virginia Madsen, who was hired for the film, is a great actress. Michael Madsen's sister. She was in a lot of stuff at this time, which is probably one of the reasons why she was able to book the role. And, bringing Sean Connery back, and Virginia Madsen, and Lambert's back, and Michael Ironside, this movie should be a win. I'd say cast-wise, it's a win. Another part of the cast that's really great is John C. McGinley, is another kind of side villain in this movie, and he's a great character actor. Later in life, he would go on to be on that Stan versus Evil show. But he was great in movies like Surviving the Game is another good role for him. He's always got these bit parts, and he always plays like an asshole. And he plays one really well. But in this movie, he's just kind of a slimy executive type, suit and tie type of villain. And he's just such an asshole, and he just runs his mouth. It's one of those guys that runs his mouth, and when you get to the point in the movie where he gets his, it's like it's like kind of joyful in a weird way. He's just like that. He does like that. He does that like persona and that face you want to punch. He does that so well in this movie. He's definitely a highlight for me. Ironside's having a blast. He's doing that mustache twirling supervillain thing perfectly, and he's insane, and he's got the insane eyes and face and voice, and he's just really leaning into it, you know, and having a ball, which good for him, especially with what you hear about the nightmare of the set and the production. He didn't let it ruin his time. He didn't let it interfere with his work. I don't think anybody let anything in this movie interfere with their work. Sean Connery's having a blast in this movie, and he's got some great scenes and lines, like the shithead scene where he is transported back to life somehow. Not magic, it's aliens, right? So, but it's not even aliens anymore, because if you're watching the cut that's out there now is the fixed cut, you know, the Renegade or the final cut. It's just they took out the aliens, but they didn't replace it with anything. So it's just like time travel without any explanation. So, but anyway, so he comes back to life, and they don't really explain how this is possible. I guess that's in tune with the first film. But he comes back to life exactly where he died. But now there's this theater there and they're doing Shakespeare, and he's confused, and he's like, he thinks this guy who's doing Shakespeare and Hamlet talking to Horatio and all that is really talking to a skull and to his dead friend, and he's trying to console him. And then the guy flips out and he's like, get off my stage, and he calls him shithead. And he's like, shithead? What's a shithead? You know, and he's like that, and he's like confused. He's never heard the word shithead, I guess. And it's just like a lot of that. And then that scene's funny, and there's a lot of just like fish out of water type humor, which I always love. And there's a scene, a montage where he's getting dressed in a suit, and it's very, very quirky and fun. And he's flying in a plane for the first time. That actually works, because that makes sense. It's like, whoa, what the hell? Are we okay? You know, he's looking out the window, and he can't believe that, you know, man has created this technology where you can fly. I don't know how he doesn't believe that. Like, he literally comes from a world of magic, you know, immortals and shit. Like, and he's so it's like, what's going on here? This is too wacky for me, you know. But all of that works. It's fun, and it's the movie is just kind of like winking at the camera here and there, which is good. It's not taking itself too seriously. It's having fun. It's over the top. It's ridiculous, like this scene, like where Connor McLeod is old when the movie starts. It's very extreme, exaggerated old man makeup like this. I always got a kick out of it. Is it the most realistic? No, but I think it looks great. And he turns young, and then Virginia Madsen and him have a sex scene, because she's just so taken by how good he looks as a young man. It's like, well, I must, you know, mount him now. And it's just like, where is this coming from? Literally, we're just hanging with this old dude. There was nothing, and now he's young, so it's like, oh, okay, yeah, let's do this. But it fits this ridiculousness of the movie. Right before that scene, there's these two, like, Batman-style villains who are, like, sticking their tongue out, and they're talking like this, and they got, like, porcupine hair, and they're floating around on hoverboards, which is actually a really cool scene. All done practically. They built the set, and they're flying on wires on the hoverboards. I think it looks great. The only con is that you can tell it's a set, because it's like a lot of the areas keep repeating itself, but it's like basically supposed to be like a big alley, back alley type of place anyway. But I think it's pretty cool. The way that the one of those goons gets his head cut off is pretty great. Like I think it's a train car, just like a wheel goes over his head, and it's all practical. Like I mean, there are like optical effects and stuff in this, but it's a lot of practical gore and effects that really work. And I think this could be potentially one of the films that ages well with time because of that, and because it's like it fits so well into that campy category, because it is like all accidentally, a lot of it is just accidentally happening, like camp is supposed to be. They didn't set out to make a campy, so bad it's good movie, but this movie is that. It has so many of those elements. I'm actually really surprised it hasn't been scooped up by some culty crowd and turned into a midnight movie where they're yelling at the screen and they're turning it into an event, because it definitely has that potential. And in time, I think it might, honestly. Now you have the Highlander remake coming out with Henry Cavill, done by Chad Gillespie of the John Wick movies. I recently realized, I didn't realize at the time, but the Matrix Resurrections, that he's the husband of Trinity in the new reality, like taking Neo's place in a way, his rival. And I thought that was a great touch because he's his stunt double in the Matrix films. And I thought, like, wow, that's a really great touch. And I didn't know at the time, because I guess I didn't know what Chad, what he looked like. But now I do. So going back and seeing that in a scene, I was like, whoa, that's a cool touch. This movie is like, I compare it to another movie that I'm quite fond of. I don't even know if I can say that, because that's the point of what I'm trying to say. That other movie is Last Action Hero. I keep going back and watching Last Action Hero, and every time I watch it, I have problems with it, but I'm drawn to it. And I can't explain why, but I get the urge. I want to watch this movie again. And that urge I get, I'm thinking of scenes and moments and elements. Does the movie completely come together as a whole? No, it doesn't. But does it have awesome parts here and there? Does it have scenes that I look forward to? Here comes the hoverboard scene. There we go. But there's either the Batman villains who are just like doing little karate chops and going, and it's just like, what the hell is going on? It's so great. It's so good. But this is one of the scenes, for instance, that I look forward to whenever I sit down to see it. And Last Action Hero, there's a lot of those scenes as well. And I sit down and I'm watching it. I'm like, okay, great. And I finish it, but I'm like, I'm cringing. Here and there, I'm cringing. Not the entire thing. I'm like, ooh, because I'm like editing it in my mind at the same time I'm watching it and enjoying it. But I can appreciate things it's gotten right. I can appreciate how good a movie like this looks, how good a movie like Last Action Hero looks. I can appreciate a beautiful disaster. And that's why I compare the two, because it's the same urge, it's the same feeling that I get when I'm drawn to watch them. And it has the tongue, yeah. It's the same feeling, it's the same nostalgia, it's the same, and I can't explain it though. I don't know, because I'm like, I would never call this movie one of my favorite movies. It will never be like one of my top 10 movies or anything like that. But there is a chance that when all is said and done, as time goes by, I've seen this movie more than any of the movies in my top 10. I can't explain it. I could say the same for Last Action Hero. Never in my top 10. Never. But have I seen it more than a lot of the movies in that top 10? Yes, I have. And am I still continually guilty of that? Yes. I will continue. Just got the 4K. Gonna watch it again. And if they release a 4K of this, most likely like a Vestron or Vinegar Syndrome, I'm there. I'm buying it. I'm seeing it. And I know that the movie is not good. Whatever, like what people would say. I don't look at movies that way, good or bad. I can see the movie as like a series of scenes. That's why I always liked when DVDs came around, the scene selections, because that's really what a movie is. It's a bunch of elements. There's a bunch of scenes cut up into a whole. And I like to think of a movie like that you could just pop in a DVD and click to your favorite scene and just watch that, if you wanted to. And that's okay. And I think it helps appreciate cinema more. It helps appreciate the process. It helps appreciate, filmmaking and art. It helps me. And sometimes I'll watch a movie in installments. And I know this is probably sacrilegious to a lot of people, but I will. And, probably problems in my brain make me do this, but I can't. If there's a time where I don't know what I want to watch, I want to watch this, I want to watch this. I'll watch them all. And the way that I figure out how to do that is I'll like set a timer and I'll watch like 10 minutes of this one, 10 minutes of this one, 10 minutes of this one. It also gives me an idea of which one I want to see. And sometimes I'll stay longer with one of them once I've decided that. And maybe I'm crazy. I am crazy. But you know, and I've just outed myself in a way saying that. But it's the truth. This is how I watch movies a lot. But in doing that, in my insanity, I have discovered and appreciated the art of the film more than I would have if I would have forced myself for whatever reason to sit down and for 2 hours and watch a movie that I'm not enjoying. When you're doing it little by little, you're like, oh, I'm enjoying it now. Now, not so much. Boo, this scene, I'm enjoying it. Wow, this is great. No, you know, so you're just like, but you're like, you know what? It wasn't all bad. It wasn't all bad. That's the flaw of a Rotten Tomatoes type system, I guess. Is this movie good or bad? Well, it's kind of both. And that's okay. A lot of movies are. There's no such thing as a perfect film. There's just never going to be. Even the classics that people love. Look at that. It's like the lips coming out. It's like, who comes up with this shit? This is amazing. I don't know. Like, you'll see, like, mostly hate out there for a movie like this. Like, yeah, that's over the top. It's like, why does he keep sticking his tongue out? Why is that his trait as a villain? And look, he comes out of the flames, and now he puts his tongue back in to show you that he's not pleased. This is great. And that look of him just, you know, and she's looking, and she's like, oh, he's young now, and they're about to, you know, and yeah, it is what it is. And look, he's flying now. He's got wings. He's got wings. Just appreciate it. Enjoy it for what it is. Look at this. Look how awesome that shot looks. He's got the long coat with the falling. Is that rain or is that? No, that's sparks. It's raining sparks. This is another little Mulcahy touch for you. So I would just, like, you know, strap in and sit down, sit back and enjoy this beautiful disaster. That's what I would do. But anyway, I don't know if I've forgotten anything. Obviously, this movie's missing the Queen music. If there was a way, that's why I've said it before. But in the remake, if they could just say, you know, swallow their pride and just find a way to bring the Queen music back in. Just we love the Queen music. It's synonymous with the series, with the franchise, with the show even. Bring it back in. Have it be that theme song. Nothing wrong with that. The Bourne films understood it. They ended every movie with that Moby song. Just let it happen. That's what I say. But this movie doesn't have anything like that. And that's a fail. It is. They should have, I don't know. I wouldn't even be against, like, them just hiring a new band every time. But like a big, like, classic band. Like somebody big. It's like, okay, you're doing the music this time. It's better than nothing. But to just, like, ignore it and act like the first movie didn't do as well as it did, you know, isn't as big of a cult film now as it is because of Queen. Of course that's a big part of it. So why would you ignore that element in all of these sequels? And I don't know. I don't think the show would have done as well as it did and stayed around for as many seasons if they didn't open every episode with that Queen song. I don't think so. Because it brings you right back there. Because that's the sound of Highlander. And I hope that they have the sense when they're sitting down to do when they're doing the remake. I know Henry Cavill says he's training right now, doing the sword training. Hopefully nobody loses fingers this time around. But what is it, that even that scene with the shadows and everything. It's just people are way too harsh on this movie. Way too harsh. Same with Last Action Hero, honestly. But I think with Last Action Hero, people are they've reassessed it and they're more forgivable now. They're still not saying it's great, but they can recognize the artistry in it and the merit it does have. But this movie is still behind in that nobody can appreciate anything about this movie, and I think it's time. Okay, so it's time to do the ranking, and so this is like one of those movies that's like, I don't agree with the term guilty pleasure, really, but it is one of my categories. It's classic, what a movie, guilty pleasure and memories are better. So memories are better. It's just like, I remember this movie better than it is now. Maybe better than it ever was. In actuality, maybe there was something wrong with me at the time, but now I can see it, and I'm just, grown, intellectually a bit more, and I can see that the movie's not very good. That's not this movie, but I feel like if you're gonna have a category called guilty pleasure, even if you don't agree with it, there are movies that are built for that category. And this is one of those movies. So even though I don't agree with the concept, because you should never feel guilty about liking a movie, I think it's more of a personal problem. I don't have a personal problem with this movie. I'll talk about how I like it, here's the part where he gets transported. It's the shithead scene. Great. But we gotta, the show must go on because it's already going very, very long. And so I've already showed my hand, but I'm going to rank this film at a guilty pleasure. And I've already said why. This is why a category like that would exist. This is when it is reassessed, and it will be, and the midnight screenings begin, and the shadow casting and all of that happens for this film as it should already be happening. When it happens for it, it's going to be given that moniker, whatever, that so bad it's good title, and this is camp. This is a bad movie that we enjoy now. And that's what guilty pleasure is kind of there for. So that's my explanation as to why I would put it in that category. Shithead? What's a shithead? So anyway, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you on the next one. Have the best life that you've ever had. One of the best lives that you could ever have. I know you've had many, but this one, and make this one a good one. On me. Until next time. Goodbye.
Show up to the party with the wrong face in space. No one hears you scream like a primate. First dates can be long and hard like a phallus. Chalice.